Hash why some people turn $10,000 into $1 million. Imagine having just $10,000. Not a million. Not 100,000. Just $10,000. For most people, that amount feels useful. It could pay off debt, buy a car, cover an emergency, fund a vacation, or simply sit in a savings account. But for a very small number of people, $10,000 becomes something completely different. It becomes the starting point for $1 million fortune. And that raises an obvious question. How? How can someone take a relatively small amount of money and turn it into $1 million? Is it investing, business, real estate, luck, or is there something else happening beneath the surface? The answer is more complicated than most financial videos make it sound. Because the people who successfully turn $10,000 into $1 million usually don't do it through one magical investment. They build a system. They understand leverage. They protect their downside. They reinvest their gains. And most importantly, they understand that the first $10,000 isn't supposed to make them rich. It's supposed to help them build the machine that eventually can. Chapter 1, $10,000 isn't the goal. The first mistake people make is thinking about the destination. They look at $10,000 and think, how can I turn this into $1 million? That sounds simple, but mathematically it's enormous. Going from $10,000 to $1 million means multiplying your money by 100. That's a 100-fold increase. A normal savings account isn't going to accomplish that quickly. Even ordinary market returns won't magically turn $10,000 into $1 million overnight. And that's the first lesson. The people who build large fortunes don't usually depend on one source of growth. They combine multiple engines: income, investing, business, skills, ownership, and time. Think about it this way. If you start with $10,000 and invest it, your money can grow. But if you also increase your income, you can add more capital. If you build a business, you can create another source of income. If you develop valuable skills, your earning potential can increase. Then you invest the additional money. Now you aren't simply growing $10,000. You're growing a system that keeps adding fuel. That's a completely different strategy. The goal isn't to find a magical investment that turns $10,000 into $1 million. The goal is to make your $10,000 the first brick in a much larger financial machine. Chapter 2, the math changes everything. Let's look at the mathematics. Suppose you invest $10,000 and somehow earn an average annual return of 10% without adding another dollar. After 10 years, you would have roughly $26,000. After 20 years, around $67,000. After 30 years, around $175,000. After 40 years, around $452,000. And after 50 years, you'd be approaching $1.2 million. That's the power of compounding. But notice something. It takes a very long time. And real investment returns are never guaranteed. Markets rise. Markets fall. Some years are excellent. Some years are terrible. So if someone tells you that you can simply invest $10,000 and quickly turn it into $1 million with no additional work, be skeptical. The mathematics don't support that promise without taking enormous risk. And enormous risk can destroy the original $10,000 just as quickly as it can multiply it. This is why the smartest strategy isn't necessarily finding the highest return. It's finding a sustainable combination of return, additional contributions, and time. Because once you understand the math, you realize something important. Your first $10,000 doesn't need to do all the work. You can help it. Chapter 3, the secret weapon is income. This is one of the biggest differences between realistic wealth building and internet fantasy. If you have $10,000, your most powerful asset may not be the $10,000 itself. It may be your ability to earn more. Imagine two people. Both start with $10,000. Person A spends years trying to find the perfect investment. Person B spends the next few years becoming dramatically more valuable. They learn sales, technology, marketing, programming, finance, negotiation, leadership, a specialized trade, anything that the market rewards. Their income rises, and now they can invest $10,000. Then another $10,000. Then another. The investment portfolio isn't growing only because of returns. It's growing because new capital keeps entering the system. This is the part people often miss. When you're starting with a relatively small amount of money, increasing your income can have a bigger impact than squeezing an extra percentage point from your investment returns. If you have $10,000 invested, an additional 5% return gives you $500. But increasing your annual income by $10,000 gives you another $10,000 to potentially save or invest. That's why skills matter so much. Skills increase earning power. Earning power creates capital. Capital buys assets. Assets produce returns. Returns create more capital. And the cycle repeats. This is how a small amount of money can eventually become something much larger. Chapter 4. They don't just save, they own. Saving is important. But saving alone usually isn't enough to create substantial wealth. At some point, you need ownership. Ownership means possessing something that can increase in value or produce income without requiring you to personally trade every hour for that income. Dogs, businesses, real estate, intellectual property, digital products, a stake in a company. These are examples of ownership. Imagine working for $25 an hour. You can increase your income by working more hours. But there is a ceiling. There are only so many hours available. Now imagine owning a business. If the business becomes more valuable, your ownership stake can become more valuable too. If the business generates profits, you may receive income from that ownership. The same principle applies to investments. You don't have to personally operate every company inside an index fund. You own a small piece of them. That's the power of ownership. Your money gets access to economic activity that is much larger than your individual labor. This is one reason wealthy people often focus heavily on assets. They aren't just trying to earn more. They're trying to own more. Chapter 5. Leverage. Now we reach one of the most important concepts in the entire story. Leverage. Leverage means using something you already have to produce a much larger result. A business owner can use employees. A software company can use technology. A creator can use an audience. An investor can use capital. Someone with a valuable skill can use the internet to reach millions of people. This changes the equation. Imagine you create a digital product. You spend $2,000 developing it. If only 10 people buy it, the result is small. But if 1,000 people buy it, the same initial effort can produce a dramatically different outcome. The work doesn't necessarily multiply one-to-one with the revenue. That's leverage. Technology has made this especially powerful. A single piece of software can serve thousands of customers. A video can be watched millions of times. A book can be sold repeatedly. An online course can be delivered to thousands of students. A business system can operate without the owner personally performing every task. This is why some people can move from thousands to hundreds of thousands, and eventually to millions. They stop relying entirely on their own time. They build systems that multiply their effort. Chapter 6. They protect the downside. There's another characteristic that separates successful wealth builders from gamblers. They understand that avoiding catastrophic losses is just as important as earning returns. Imagine turning $10,000 into $30,000. Then taking an enormous risk and losing everything. You're back at zero. But losing 50% of your capital doesn't simply require a 50% gain to recover. If you lose half, you need a 100% gain on what's left just to return to where you started. That's why risk management matters. Successful investors don't ask only, how much can I make? They also ask, how much can I lose? This is a completely different mindset. Gambling focuses on upside. Wealth building focuses on survival. Because if you survive long enough, compounding gets a chance to work. One bad decision can destroy years of progress. That's why diversification, appropriate risk, emergency savings, and avoiding unnecessary debt can matter enormously. The goal isn't to become rich tomorrow. The goal is to remain in the game long enough to become wealthy over time. Chapter 7 They reinvest. Here's another difference. When some people make their first $10,000, they celebrate by spending it. New phone, new car, vacation, luxury purchase. And there's nothing inherently wrong with enjoying money. But if every financial gain immediately becomes consumption, the wealth building process stops. People who successfully build large fortunes tend to reinvest a significant portion of their gains. Imagine a business that makes an extra $20,000. The owner could spend all of it, or they could reinvest it into marketing, employees, technology, inventory, product development. The next year, that investment might help produce $40,000. Then some of that gets reinvested again. This is how businesses grow. Investments work similarly. Returns can be reinvested. Dividends can buy additional shares. Profits can fund expansion. Skills can generate higher income that creates additional investment capital. The key idea is simple. Don't consume the seed. Plant it. Chapter 8 They think in decades. Most people think about money in weeks. Can I afford this? Can I pay the bill? Can I buy the car? Can I take the vacation? Wealth builders often think differently. They ask, what will this decision look like in 10 years? That's a powerful question. A small amount of money invested today may look insignificant. But repeated contributions over 20 or 30 years can become substantial. A skill learned today may create thousands of dollars in additional income over a career. A business relationship built today may create opportunities years later. A good financial habit repeated for decades can become a fortune. This is why patience is such an underrated financial skill. Everyone wants the result. Few people want the timeline. But compounding requires time. And time rewards consistency. Chapter 9 The Snowball Effect. At first, the progress feels almost invisible. $10,000 becomes $12,000. Then $15,000. Then $20,000. You might wonder, is this really going anywhere? But eventually, the numbers get larger. $50,000, $100,000, $250,000, $500,000. Now the same percentage returns produce increasingly meaningful dollar amounts. A 10% return on $10,000 is $1,000. A 10% return on $100,000 is $10,000. A 10% return on $500,000 is $50,000. And a 10% return on $1 million is $100,000. The percentage didn't become more powerful. The capital base became larger. That's the snowball. Early on, you're pushing it. Later, the snowball starts moving itself. This is why the first stages of wealth building can feel unfairly slow. You're doing most of the work. But if you stay consistent, eventually your capital begins carrying more of the load. Chapter 10 The Real Difference. So why do some people turn $10,000 into $1 million? Not because they discovered one secret stock. Not because they found a guaranteed investment. And not necessarily because they were lucky. The people who successfully build that kind of wealth often combine several advantages. They increase their earning power. They save and invest consistently. They acquire assets. They use leverage carefully. They reinvest profits. They protect themselves from catastrophic losses. And they give the process enough time to compound. Most importantly, they understand that wealth isn't built from one giant decision. It's built from thousands of smaller decisions. What skill will I learn? What will I spend? What will I save? What will I invest? What will I own? What risks will I take? What risks will I avoid? What will I do with the next dollar? Those decisions may look insignificant individually, but repeated over decades, they can create completely different lives. Ending $10,000 is only the beginning. Imagine holding $10,000 in your hands. You could spend it. You could save it. You could invest it. Or you could use it as the first piece of something much larger. The important question isn't, how can I turn $10,000 into $1 million? The better question is, how can I use $10,000 to become the kind of person who can eventually build $1 million? That means learning, increasing your income, buying assets, building businesses, taking intelligent risks, protecting your downside, reinvesting your gains, and most importantly, being patient. Because the first stage of wealth is usually the hardest. Your capital is small. Your mistakes are expensive. Your opportunities are limited. But every dollar you save, every skill you build, every asset you acquire, every year you remain consistent, changes the equation. Eventually, the money starts working. Then the returns start working. Then the systems start working. And eventually, the person who started with $10,000 isn't relying on $10,000 anymore. They're relying on everything that $10,000 helped them build. That's the real secret. The first $10. Zero doesn't need to become $1 million by itself. It needs to become the foundation. Because wealth isn't created when your money suddenly becomes enormous. It's created when a small amount of capital, combined with skill, ownership, leverage, discipline, and time, becomes a system capable of producing more. And once that system is working, the journey from $10,000 to $1 million stops looking like magic. It starts looking like mathematics, repeated consistently, for a very long time.